Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And we've gone into the way the economy is starting to head in a downward trajectory, considering interest rates around the world, where for all these years we saw them try to push up interest rates, except for in Australia, where now they're just dropping them out. And the United States has been talking about dropping interest rates. We've looked at recessions in places like Italy, the fall of Deutsche Bank, and all these other problems that play into this global everything bubble and the calamity that is to come, which inevitably it has to happen eventually. It's been pushed off far longer than anyone could have ever imagined.
Josh, you're wrong. There's nothing to see. Come on, aren't you following mainstream news and media out there, Josh?
Just trust your...
Everything's fine.
Yeah. Trust your local bank. Trust your local bank and their advisors, the academics that have never succeeded at anything in their life. But anyway, I wanted to go into something that was massive in the headlines today, which is the British economy. Because I wanted to note that, first of all, we haven't done a whole lot on the British economy over the last several years. I wanted to talk about the pound, first of all, because we are looking at the pound heading for 2-year lows as the holidays begin, as this BBC article says. And as the article goes into, the pound is heading for 2-year lows against the dollar as markets react to continuing Brexit uncertainty and signs that the UK economy is slowing. The currency fell sharply after data showed slowing sales at UK retailers, and economists forecast a contraction in the economy in the second quarter. Against the dollar, the pound fell below $1.25 and was close to its lowest level since April 2017. And I should note that, it's a race to the bottom. The US dollar's falling, the pound's falling. Which one falls faster is basically what they're talking about there, but we'll get into more of this shortly. But first I'll continue on here. As it says, the pound was also at a 6-month low against the euro at just above €1.11. With the holiday season getting underway, it means travelers from the UK will getting fewer dollars and euros for their pounds. Sterling has also been swayed by uncertainty in the aftermath of the EU referendum, but has been more stable in recent months because of confidence about the UK economy. However, recent economic surveys have suggested that the economy may now be weakening, and Jane Foley, head of foreign exchange strategy at Rabobank, said this was being factored into the market. And I quote, "The economic picture is not particularly pretty," she said. The pound fell 0.5% against the dollar at $1.24.55, marking the lowest point for it since April 2017, excluding a brief flash fall in January this year, and it goes deeper than that. But I also want to note that the Bank for International Settlements has also said that we're heading into very terrible territory right away, and they're not quite sure what to do. But I also want to go from that into this other article out of Bloomberg, which says UK economy probably shrank for first time in 7 years. And as this article goes into, it says the UK economy probably shrank for the first time since 2012 in the second quarter, according to Bloomberg's latest survey of economists. The prediction for a 0.1% contraction in the 3 months through June marks a downgrade from the previous poll, when economists only predicted stagnation. The forecast came as retail industry reported another drop in sales and said the picture is bleak. And you can see this chart here, a second quarter slowdown going on. It says the latest poll follows a dismal week of reports in the UK, with purchasing managers' indexes showing the dominant services industry barely growing in June, and both construction and manufacturing sectors suffering outright contractions. Bank of England Governor Mark Carney, that guy, last weekend warned that global trade tensions and the growing threat of a no-deal Brexit had increased downside risk to growth. Official data due Wednesday is forecast by economists to show growth rebound to 0.3% in May after a contraction of 0.4% in April. Still, such a reading would mean an expansion of 0.8% was needed in June just to return a flat result for the quarter as a whole, according to Bloomberg calculations. In a separate report, the British Retail Consortium reported on Tuesday that retail sales fell 1.6% in June from a year earlier on a like-for-like basis. That's worse than the average change in the past 12 months, the lobby group said. The worsening outlook both at home and overseas has also left investors and economists rewriting their calls for UK interest rates. Interesting, isn't that? Markets are now almost fully pricing in a rate cut for mid-2020, while the latest survey shows economists don't see a move higher until the second quarter of 2021. So there we go, John. Once again, we're hearing about interest rates, and we're seeing a bit of panic happening where all these central bankers are like, oh, we got this, even though it's been like technically in a perpetual crash, or as Stephen Kendall, our frequent guest here at WAM, calls it, a ghost crash, since 2008, when the recession, quote unquote, ended, but everything was perpetuated in a sea of debt. Now, I want to first, before we get into interest rates and all that craziness, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what you think about this 2-year low for the pound versus another falling currency, the US dollar, which is losing its prevalence around the world. And you had a bit of info on that that is kind of interesting if you take into account. Can you go into that a bit?
Yeah, no. So what has happened with the UK pound over time is that if we actually go past 2016, so if you look at this chart here, I have the chart of the short term. This is a 5-year chart that shows you that it actually hit a low in 2016 at about 1.19 to the US dollar. And then now it's currently at 1.24, but it's dropped just over the year almost 5% to the US dollar. But then if you take a bigger look at the grander picture, if we draw that line out and actually look at the historical stats since 1957 in the UK, we're actually looking at here at the chart. If you go past that, if you go down below 191, you actually be looking at about 1985-86 low that would be the next. It hasn't been this low for 34 years if it goes below the 2016 levels. So we're seeing that the UK pound is severely devaluing, and there's a lot of inflation. And of course, they recently talked about that it would be, I think it was $200 billion that they would have to bail out the UK economy in order to save it if they do the Brexit the right way. And of course, this is the thing, like they kind of...
It's financial terrorism.
Yeah, well, they screwed themselves over by joining the mafia cartel consortium that the European Union is. And then now they have a hard time exiting it because all the contracts, all the garbage that, was putting on them, that massive burden of those unelected.
And of course, Theresa May resigning, that plays into it, because you know, as much as I hate all organized crime cartels and the criminals that are involved in them, I have to kind of almost feel bad, because it's like if she passed Brexit, half of the country would hate her. If she doesn't pass Brexit, half of the country hates her. So she's trying to, everyone hates her for that, and then she's not succeeding at it, everyone hates her for that too. It's like, oh man, you can't win in that scenario.
No, definitely not. It's a lose-lose scenario for Elizabeth May, of course, and now
Theresa May.
Theresa May. I saw Elizabeth May. We've got our green loony over here in Canada. No, but anyways, it's pretty terrible for the UK economy. No matter what happens here, they've been stuck in a cartel. That's the European Union, of course, where there's unelected officials. And the UK just wants to come back to itself. Remember back in the 60s, this is actually one of the guys that we interviewed far back at Goodliff. He's told me some stories about how they fled actually the UK in the 60s because they had 95% top tax bracket. Not very many people.
One for you, 19 for me.
But before that, they actually had a very good economy. If you actually take a look at it, like after they implemented those high taxes, the economy went to the pound would drop to the US dollar just from that massive, outpouring. And of course, they destroyed all the industries that they had. They used to have a big auto and a motorcycle industry in the UK, and now, of course, they have zero of that.
Yeah, but with that said, John, what would you consider like a good economy that's centralized? I mean, either way, it was still fiat, like centralized, controlled by the central bank.
Well, some people might say that the UK pound is the oldest currency in existence and that it's lasted for over 200 years. No, well, it's lasted for a while, but again, the actual value of the UK pound versus what it was, it's worth like nothing. So I don't know if you call that lasting as a currency. I guess so, but it's worth nothing. Like it'll
be like the Argentinian peso, where it kept crashing into hyperinflation and inflationary events over and over again, and they just kept crashing that currency and creating a new one, and that they just renamed the peso over and over again. Like, oh, all is good. It's the same currency. Nothing failed, and we'll be doomed to repeat history again.
Well, yeah, it's just full of. They're just full of it. They're just trying to hide that it's collapsed several times. They also sold most of their gold during Brown's bottom, where the Brown, I think it was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, he sold all of the gold basically at the worst possible time in the UK as well. So they just have again, Josh, this is just us trying to cover another nation, another political system, and a democratic system and centralized system that's failing again. I don't know how many times.
Go figure.
It's basically the same story wherever we put our
John,
right now.
With that said, let's talk a bit about this other article that I went into there about the UK economy probably shrank for first time in 7 years, and they're talking about pushing lower interest rates for it. And we heard this in so many countries already. We've seen it negative in Sweden and Japan. We've seen Australia lower interest rates twice in the last little while, down to 1%, which is crazy low. The United States wasn't able to prop it up enough, and now they're dropping them. They're talking about dropping them out, and we know that'll go negative. What do you think about? I can't forget Italy. Italy is in bad shape. France is in bad shape. I mean, where do you see this going on a global scale when you see Britain now talking about doing the same thing that every other central bank in the world is doing?
No, they're just heading the same way as everybody else, and of course their interest rate is currently. Let me just pull it up here just 1 second, Josh. It's currently at 0.76%. And of course it's really low, and this is of course a lot higher than the European Central Bank's interest rates, which is at zero. And this is crazy. Like, what we gotta understand is they're in a massive crisis over there at the European Union, and they're at basically 0 to 1% maybe, like depending on the country that's not a Euro country, because they have different interest rates than the ECB that runs the whole Euro system. But you're looking at a crazy low interest rate, and we're hitting a massive we've been in depression since 2008, let's just call it out for what it is, but we just papered over it. And recently I had a friend of mine that just called me right before we were talking there, Josh. He was doing some travels down in California, and he had seen what you call basically a vehicle yard that they just stored vehicles. There was like 26 miles of just parking lot full of Ford cars, and they're saying that we have record sales. Well, why are all those cars parked on a 26-mile lot? What's happening there? And some people actually, this is not fact, I can't prove this yet, but I'm actually going to look into it. But what people have been saying, and my friend was saying too, he was saying that actually Ford, they believe that Ford actually are buying their own cars in order to make it look, and then they stow them in these faraway places, which actually makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to me, because we're in such a down spiral in the economy that
it's like a new kind of share buyback.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's 100% a share buyback, but of course we can't prove this, so this is just a conspiracy theory, if you could call it that.
Well, you know what? Something that we can prove, John, is that, for example, we've been talking about the UK housing market in the past, and this article out of The Guardian says UK housing crisis deepens as benefit claimants priced out by high rents in benefit freeze is making London and Manchester increasingly unaffordable. And this seems to be the case in so many of these places around the world. We have the problem with the economy, a problem with the markets, a problem with centralization, the problem with debt, the problem of artificially propping up everything based on absolutely nothing, just word of mouth and people believing it. Faith, it's all complete nonsense. And I mean, this is all going to come to fruition eventually. I mean, you cannot prop up this system forever. And, as we see around Europe, and I love Europe, but, you go around the place, it's just the amount of homelessness and poverty that's growing in these places. I was just in Germany, I was just in Spain, I was just in France. Spain was the least of the bad out of all three of those, but I mean, it's just, you're seeing such a huge amount of homelessness popping up, and as per usual, we have politicians fighting with politicians on which way to rule your lives better, and it just perpetuates the problem for eternity. But I mean, with this push for lower interest rates, and with the push for, the demonetization of cash is a big part of it as well, that we've seen happening all over the world. We got to look at what they're getting prepared for next, because they aren't just going to back out easily and just give the whole, everyone their freedom back, quote unquote. Basically, what I think they're going to do out of desperation, they're going to do whatever they can to prop up that system, which includes what I believe to be that cashless society that we've been talking about so much. I think Mario Draghi has made that very clear. I think we've seen that at the IMF pushing for the SDR. We're seeing the notion of, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. And if your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always a bank's. And if you look at the banks, they're bankrupt. You look at their balance sheets, they're bankrupt. The cash to deposit ratio is dramatically low. It's crazy. And
there's no fraction. Yeah, there's no fractional reserve lending anymore. That's just utter bullshit.
No, and then you have people like Mario Draghi, who is talking about getting rid of depositor insurance. And what are you going to do about that? Do a run on the bank when it's cashless? And they've implemented some kind of Chinese control system, technocratic system, where they give you social credit scores, which Facebook has already been working on with their Libra coin and digital identity fingerprints and everything. And this notion of you have to behave or else you'll be put on this list. And if you're put on that list, you won't be able to do everyday things like go to certain restaurants, travel, etc. And it's all wired through your banking system. And what are you going to do about it? Again, you can't do a run on the bank when it's a cashless society. And this is getting more and more, going more and more in this direction. And I feel like that is their last ditch effort when we're seeing this whole system come down, though I don't think they're ready for it. What do you think, John?
Well, yeah, of course. I think that's where everything is going cashless. And a lot of people believe that we can't go too deep into cashless, but no too deep into negative interest rates. And that's kind of true, because they really need this cashless system, this blockchain cashless cash.
Centralized.
Yeah, centralized. They call it a distributed ledger, which is laughable, but that's what they're talking about. Then, of course, Bank of Canada and the Monetary Authority of Singapore just recently made a blockchain transaction, not just central bank to central bank, but all the way through the banking system. So you tell me if they're not ready, some of these guys. And then, of course, Carney, he comes from Canada, so I'm pretty sure he's been involved, and he's also sat on the Financial Stability Board. He's been head of that for a while now. So you make me think that they are not going to move in that direction. Well, people might think that, interest rates are going to go through the roof. No, they're going to go into negative interest rates to try to save the economy. And what they're trying to do is create monetary velocity, because nobody's spending money. Everybody's bankrupt. Only the ultra rich have the money because they printed so much money. But the problem was that the only one that had access to it was the ultra wealthy, the 1%, the 0.01% ultra elite that was sitting and just constantly, buying more and more assets and propping up the system. Meanwhile, the distortion of inequality, that's the real inequality. And then these idiots at socialist wants to actually create, with the modern monetary theory, print more money. It's just everybody wants to print money for themselves, but nobody understands that they'll completely devastate and destroy the whole system. The thing is, when you have a socialist money printing system for a corporate elite for the 0.01%, you actually get asset hyperinflation, which you've seen, and that's why we have a problem with everybody affording houses, and you see new record highs in stock markets. And then on the other side, if you actually were to do a money printing for that the socialists want, well, now we're gonna have real hyperinflation because everybody's spending money into the economy and don't have assets. So it's just the two things there. You're just creating hyperinflation no matter what you've done, and they created that. Like, look at the housing prices. You know, some of them have been up 200%. You tell me, is that not like a hyperinflation and massive devaluation of the currency? Just that you actually didn't put all of it into the economy, but now you're seeing some of it coming back. But the problem is now everybody is so over indebted and nobody can afford anything. So you're seeing actually the inflation is shutting down right now and going backwards again. So
John, I mean, most people don't understand money, so the way they look at it is, well, maybe we just need to raise wages or something. Like, it seems like people don't understand. It's not their fault. They've been lied to, as our friend Ryan Greshuk wrote a book called a while back ago. And I mean, but it's true though. People have been lied to. They don't understand money, and for that reason, they are doomed to perpetuate and repeat history over and over again, but always on a more extreme scale.
Oh, 100%, Josh. And this is the problem, and this is, of course, what Rob Kiyosaki, that me and you just recently talked about all the time, is financial education. There's zero financial education out in, and we're not talking about just how to spend your money properly. This is actually understanding exactly how the monetary system works. Almost nobody, and this comes back to, Henry Ford saying that, only one person in a million knew how corrupt and how bad the monetary system was, what a fraud it was, a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
There would be a revolution tomorrow. And I think more and more people are waking up to this, but it's a kind of a slow go here. And that's the thing, is that trust game will keep on going until the brainwashed sheep actually turns on their elites by not accepting the currency anymore because it's so devalued. There's no value, and actually keeping and this is like becoming kind of a financial education for a lot of people, that they're keeping saving in these dollars. But now you're looking at, like, before, it's not too long ago, it was just $1 million to retire nicely. Well, now we need 1.7. So just they're just gonna see this whole monetary system crumble underneath their feet. And of course it's created by these corrupt central banking elite morons that are out there that have been taught this Keynesian economics and don't know any better. And of course, some of them are corrupt. They created this two-tier system with the top elite and everything. But this is what's coming down, and no matter what we're trying to do. But unfortunately, I think the socialists are trying to, make a move here because they're seeing that the system is crumbling. We just need to educate enough people to understand that, more government is not the solution. And we're just going to end up in a totalitarian regime like Venezuela, where they killed thousands of people.
Constantly perpetuating the same things that we learn over history. Remember the 5th of November, guys. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just saying. You have to look at that history, though. You have to look at that history and go back to even after the American Revolution. This idea that, look how powerful central banks are. Look how powerful the banking system is. Where I remember Alexander Hamilton there pushed George Washington to accept a central bank in the United States, and it didn't take long after the Revolution to team up with the Bank of England, and the Revolution was fought for practically nothing at that point because monetary control was grasped.
Yeah, and even the Continental was just pushed upon people. I just been writing in my new book about that, how they actually just forced people to use the Continental and went to as well that whole currency, because that they just printed it and was centrally enforced upon people through legal tender laws. This is the same.
You like me having to bleep you, hey?
Yeah, sorry, Josh. I'm getting kind of a little bit too animated here because I'm getting pissed off at this whole system. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, it's just the way it goes sometimes, unfortunately.
But there is more solutions than there are problems. When it comes down to it, like we talk about so much here at WHAM, it's food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Gold and silver historically have done great as wealth insurance, not meant as investment advice, our opinion, but nonetheless wealth insurance. And then going into sound, decentralized, fundamentally useful, must have a use case, scarcity, application, use, and demand, like gold does in many ways. It's subjectivity of value, after all. cryptocurrency that, and most of them are bad, but a few of them are really good and they can actually do a lot of good. And that's what, competing currency is all about. Privacy coins like Monero, etc. But then going on from that, I mean, it comes down to responsibility in the end. What are you doing for yourself? Don't ask for other people to help you. Do for yourself, help yourself, learn about these things and have control over your money so your money doesn't have control over you. And if your money has control over you, you don't want to know who's controlling you overall, because it's the people who are controlling the money. So anyway, it's good to understand these solutions. There's a lot more solutions, like I said, than there are problems. But anyway, we're going to wrap it up at that. And I want to remind everyone to check out anarchovegas.com. Use promo code WHAM to save 10% on your tickets, because I don't know what the weather is like out in Britain, but it's nice and toasty here in Las Vegas. So on July 21st, we are having a very interesting conference with people like G. Edward Griffin and Jeff Berwick and Bo of the Fifth Column and Larkin Rose, and I could go on and on and on. A lot of really interesting people, and emceed by Benny Wills. David Rodriguez is speaking. Luke Rudowski, Dan Dix, Ford Fisher, Kerry Wedler, a whole bunch of really great people are all going to be here. And yours truly, as well as John's, will be there as well. So we're looking forward to seeing you there. Like I said, nice and toasty. So I don't know, Vegas is the cheapest place that I can think of in the world to fly direct to, and I'm pretty sure you can get a good flight out of London. So check that out. Frankfurt, Germany, easy flights. Barcelona, easy flights to Vegas, etc., etc. Anyway, and there's also the Winnipeg Crypto Conference coming up in Winnipeg, Canada in October, which you can check out, and we have a link below there. Promo code WHAM, save money on your tickets with that promo code as well. And independent media is being killed by shadow banning and demonetization and all sorts of, shenanigans. Every now and then we get through the algorithm, but it's been harder than ever, and we are getting largely the subscriber and viewership rate that we were getting when we had 5% of the subscribers years ago. So it's getting really bad. We need your help more than ever. We can't do it without you. I mean, if you, sorry, I was swatting away a fly here. If you were to send like $1 a month, I mean, $12 a year, if everyone did that, imagine what that would do for independent medias. We'd overtake the mainstream medias easily. So just worth thinking about. Our Subscribestar is linked below, where we'll do subscriber-only content for you. We've already done some. And also, Patreon, GoFundMe, Bitcoin, all those things on steemit.com. We have a Dash and Digibyte addresses on all of our posts as well that you could send to help us and tip us. It means a lot. And we are on BitChute, where you can also tip in, to our Bitbacker through BitChute, which help us a lot. Anyway, there's alternatives. There's lots of ideas coming up. Float, Flote, coming out soon. Float.app, check that out as well. We could go on all day. The free market answers when there are problems. Hopefully, we all support those alternatives, and going forward, we do whatever we can to save the information war from being lost to a bunch of power-hungry behemoths of debt and destruction that we know as government and banks. So anyway, thanks for joining us again, John, and we'll be coming back at you with much more on the near horizon, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at WHAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we're so heavily demonetized and censored and shadow banned. It's getting really bad, folks. If everyone just gave $1 single a month to, say, Patreon or our Subscribestar, where we do subscriber-only content, we could really get out of this rut that we are currently in as YouTube tries to stifle independent media and prop up the mainstream media. This is really important. This is one of the most important times in independent media history for us to say it's now or never. Let's keep moving forward and let's be that change that we wish to see in the world. Of course, there's also our Bitcoin address below as well as on the screen for you to scan if if you please. And of course, we got events coming up. So make sure to check us out at anarchovegas.com. Anarchovegas.com. Use promo code WAM, that's WAM, for a 10% discount on your tickets. It's on July 19th, 20th, and 21st in, of course, Las Vegas, Nevada. That's anarchovegas.com. Make sure to check us out there and find us on websites like BitTube and Minds, and just try to support independent media, if not myself, any of the other big independent medias out there, to help us continuously bring our message to you free of charge so that we can really change the guard as we move forward into a dramatically polarized, crazy future. Let's try to make it as sustainable as possible. It comes down to you guys. You are the change you wish to see. You guys will help us get through these tough times. So anyway, check out all those links. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.